Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Well, it's that time of the year where we find out what is going to be happening in the year ahead. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is a guest we've had many times here on the program. She is mystic healer Sonja Grace, and she's going to grace us with her insights about what we can anticipate in the upcoming year ahead. Sonja, how are you?
Hi, Dan. I'm great. Thanks for having me back on your show.
Oh, of course. Now, how did last year go for some of the predictions that you had? What actually did happen, and what were some of the things, would have been put in the Nostradamus column, I'm sure?
Dan, I think that there's quite a few things that came to fruition of what I talked about last year, particularly in regards to the earth and weather, and we're pretty much headed in that direction still to come. There's a great deal of, weather extreme that we've experienced, as we know, over the last year, but we're going to experience it even more so this coming year. 2014 that we're in now is going to be a bit of a bumpy ride in regards to the earth and weather and all of the changes that this planet is going through.
Mm-hmm. I remember back around 2010, 2011, you talked about us approaching or going to be experiencing a mini ice age. Now you're hearing it all over the news. So
yes, and we are. We're basically diving straight into that one. And it's I find it very interesting, and I'm sure your listeners will too, that 15,000 years ago there was a mini ice age, and there was a mile deep of ice. It was a mile deep of ice over Seattle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's not like these things happen overnight. This is gradual, but we'll start to see the weather changes happening to such a regularity and extreme that it's winter and then it just sort of stays winter. So I feel that over the next decade we're in for some pretty big shifts with the planet, and I don't want to alarm people or have the listeners feeling like, oh my God, what do I have to do? Do I need to move to South America? But I do want to note that I find it interesting in my work and all the people that I work with. There is a migratory call, if you will, in humans right now. And a lot of people are hearing that as if we were, a herd of beings that are used to migratory movement, but we don't really, we don't heed that call very often because we're now stable and we live in homes and we have a mortgage and, a job and things that don't allow us to do that. But there's a real movement going on where many people are moving to Ecuador and, countries that are much further south than we are here in the Pacific Northwest.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So is it going to continue to get worse, or is it just going to maybe stabilize and then maybe warm up a little bit?
I see it. I see it getting worse. I see we're going to have a really big problem with wind, and this is everything from hurricanes to tornadoes, and our crops here in the United States could really suffer March through June due to wind. I feel that wind is going to be a factor that many people have not taken into consideration, but obviously hurricanes and tornadoes come from wind, so we've already seen that trend. But wind in general is going to be a bit of a problem again in the Midwest. Of course, we saw that years and years ago, but it's coming back around. And I feel that we're going to also have another pretty tough round with fire. That fire is going to affect California, Oregon, Idaho, Nevada, and Arizona to a pretty extreme fire season.
Mm-hmm.
We may have a significant rise in the sea levels. And I'm actually, my guides are saying that we're going to, this year, start to see cities that are affected by this having to evacuate certain parts of the city.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just something that will, it's going to happen. It's just like we're born and we die. It's going to happen. And people have to be ready for this. And I hope that whatever I say today is more of a pathway for people who are listening to prepare, to be smart, to say, oh, okay, I live by the coast. Maybe I need to look at moving inland. I've always wanted to move to Colorado.
Or maybe they can also decide this is the time that I learn to swim.
That what?
You learn to swim.
Well, there you go.
Now, speaking of the ocean, because we are on the Pacific side of the world, Fukushima, what's going on with this? How do you see this coming out? Because my understanding is it's still like 98% super radioactive, so that's pretty ugly considering that just happened a year or so ago.
It's very ugly, and from my understanding, they're actually moving the rods daily now, and it's extremely dicey. It's very dangerous, and basically from moving these rods, all kinds of things could happen. What I see for next year, or I keep saying next year, but we're already in it, I apologize, in 2014, is that Fukushima will get fully shut down and that they will have this resolved, that they will actually get the rods moved, and there will be a final end to this disaster. And I let that be a ray of hope that we all have, that there is an end to this disaster, because it has wreaked havoc on our ocean. And the thing that my guides also said was that there would be a great deal of sea life dying off, not just in the Pacific Ocean, but around the world, and that a lot of whales and dolphins were going to go. They would die because the frequencies that are now here on Earth, this fifth dimension I'm always talking about on your show, this energy is so high, it's such a high frequency, all life forms are having to adjust to it. And as difficult as it is for humans, so is it for animals and whales and dolphins and all living beings on the planet. But what they're dealing with is they're dealing with an environmental issue along with this frequency change.
Oh, okay.
Because we're not the Pacific Ocean isn't the only ocean that's got some heavy pollution issues going on.
Now, there's a lot of concern and, about gun violence, especially here in America. But how do we see, are things going to settle down here in 2014, or are we going to just continue to escalate? What do you see going on there?
I see it escalating, and the way I want to broach this is this already exists, right? We've seen it. It's happened in a bunch of different places around the United States, and I'm sure worldwide. This already exists, and because of this frequency, this fifth dimension that we're in, things are becoming more and more extreme. So what someone experiences as being really bad, it's almost accentuated that it's even worse. It's horrific. And these extremes are happening to where, the weather is extreme, gun violence is extreme, violence towards children is extreme. I mean, I can't say that word enough, that this is the trend, and we're on this trend because we're actually moving over the course of the next couple of decades. We're going to be moving out of a dualistic reality where we measure things in this way, where we see things in this way. We're really, really splitting this duality apart so that eventually people will be existing more in a state of peace. That's why they call this the golden era. But we've got to we got to peel back all these layers and all of this karmic stuff that we've been enduring for centuries, to be in that kind of state of being. Some people won't make it. Some people will just say, it's too much change, it's too hard, I can't quite snap onto this, and they develop cancer and they're gone. Some people, it will be large groups of people. In fact, I saw a very large group of people leaving the planet this year that's in Somalia. I think that there's illness, there's all kinds of things that's happening for people around the world that is putting them up against this deciding line. Am I going to stay? Am I going to go? Am I going to really adapt to this new frequency, or is it time for me to leave the planet? And, God bless those people in China and Beijing who are dealing with so much pollution. It is now required that everyone wear a mask.
Wow.
The pollution is so heavy there. I just heard this yesterday, that people are now required to wear a mask if they go outside. And there are hundreds of people. We don't even hear about this. There are hundreds of people that are dying of cancer at very young ages because of the pollution in the air.
My goodness.
Yeah.
What's most of that? Is that because they've started with the automobile culture over there, or what's going on?
Oh, I think it's their factories and
Okay.
the different industries that are polluting the air with big puffs of smoke coming out of their chimney stacks.
Oh, my goodness. That just doesn't even sound good.
No, it doesn't. So let's just quickly go back to Fukushima.
Okay.
The good news is I see this getting fully shut down, and I see Japan on it. They're on it. They're taking care of it. They're doing their job, and the world has put enough pressure on them that they're getting it done. And believe me, they are a culture that has pride and that does not want to be the culture that brings down humanity. So their integrity and what they're trying to do is really at the top, and I see them getting it done, and I see the whole thing being shut down. What concerns me is other nuclear issues around the planet, and I see some kind of nuclear issue more towards Russia, China, on that side of the world. Regarding a nuclear power plant, and there's some kind of an earthquake, some kind of an earth event that could bring about a shutdown kind of nuclear experience that is not so great on that side of the world.
And the other concern, too, that people should have is the fact that the Americans actually helmed the new Godzilla movie. That just isn't going to work for me.
Right. Right. It's it's so interesting, Dan, to go and watch the movies and see how we are literally manifesting what we're watching in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think of iRobot and some of these more robotic films that have come out, and we're heading towards that.
Right.
We are heading towards cars that drive us. We will not have to drive our cars. We're heading towards everything being, the lady in your phone telling you what directions to take and where to go. And now we have this movie where, this guy falls in love with the woman who's talking to him in his phone. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We're moving towards this, but we're manifesting this as we create it. Mm-hmm. So the visionaries out there who are listening, the people who are writing the scripts and writing the movie scripts for all of these visual things that we get to watch, those are the people that should be very careful about what they're creating. Because as they create for themselves and their own, delight in their artistic expression, they're creating for the world. Mm-hmm. Because we go and watch these movies and we invest our energy in, oh, my God, what if that happened?
Mm-hmm. Well, think about this, too. There are two movies that I believe are up for Oscar nominations that came out in December, The Wolf of Wall Street and American Hustle. Now, that's really interesting because in a way it celebrates what initially really is, of course, corporate greed, corruption, and guys just breaking the law, basically, and hurting other people. But it seems to be sent when you hear people talk about seeing these movies, and I, for one, was one of them, so I'm not going to stand beside and be hypocritical about it, but felt very entertained in a way, in some sort of awe by the fact these people were able to do what they did to the level of extravagance, while at the same time almost slipping away from the whole thing,
right.
Without, tell us, so I guess, and juxtaposing that ideal, let's talk about the financial markets and how things are going to look in light of something like that.
Well, I want to I want to just back up about these movies real quick.
Right.
They are, I saw both of them, and they're really good. You know, they're great films, but to me they are the expression of the last hurrah in the fourth dimension. They are a complete explanation of what we experienced in the fourth dimension, which is our love for money, our greed, our love for sex and drugs and rock and roll. I mean, they cover all of the loves, the topics that we explored love through as we traveled through this fourth dimension for centuries. You know, expressing ourselves, in all different forms, but it really was about love. And so much of these two films, to me, were great examples of that fourth dimension and how reckless everyone could be, and really all in the name of love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now in the financial market, I am seeing a really uptrend, and I'm seeing that we will be on kind of an upswing until around June. And then the market's going to go down a little bit, but it's going to come back up in September, and it's going to actually go higher. It's going to seem unstable a bit. It could cause a real frenzy of investments in May, June, and July, kind of that, oh, no, what's happening? And everybody kind of scrambles. But I just want to say to everyone, chill. It's going to be okay. It's going to come back, and it's going to go even higher. So we'll see just a little bit of fluctuation, May, June, July, May, June, July, and then it's going to go up.
Fascinating. So people can feel encouraged that the economy is rebounding in a way.
Yes, it's totally rebounding.
Well, that's very encouraging.
Yes, it is. It's encouraging, and it's something that I think we all need to have that sense of, there's some kind of hope there, and we've lived our lives so much on the scope of what's important, having a home and food on the table, and all the things that we all function and have to do in our lives. And yet this fifth dimension is demanding that we completely drop all the templates, everything that we've ever known to be true, and basically walk forth into this new vibration with nothing but a spiritual connection. And so to adapt that, for everyone to take that and adapt it and look at the changes that are happening, but that we remain solid, that we all have faith and we all have determination and an inner strength spiritually within us that helps us get through some of these earth changes. I think we will rise and be on the top of it, but it's going to be a process to get through it.
It doesn't come easy, in other words.
No, it doesn't come easy. No.
Now, we talked a little bit about the Ice Age earlier in the program and the weather. What about earthquakes and fires? And of course, then there's the oil fracking, which we covered on the program last summer. But how do you see all that playing out? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to mellow out? Or what's going on there?
I see another kind of rather large earthquake. I know South America gets earthquakes, but my guides kept insisting that Chile was in for a pretty big one, and that there was going to be some earthquakes that were hitting the United States as well. I don't see a big one for California. I don't see anything really happening here in the state that you and I are in Oregon, other than maybe some 3.5, a 4.0, that level, which is what we've had off the coast. The real area I'm concerned about is Chile and the coastlines in South America. I'm concerned, and I feel that this whole Ring of Fire is just holding on by a few threads. And as it shifts, particularly in the ocean, it's going to shift everything. But more than we're going to see a big, earthquake kind of drama, I think we're going to see more volcanic response, both up in Alaska and possibly even down through Washington, Oregon, California. I think it's going to be the pressure valve release.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's another prehistoric time, folks.
Yeah, there's a big volcanic eruption going on in Indonesia right now. I think it's on Java, and it's one that they weren't even expecting. And they weren't even looking at this one. And it's pouring so much ash into the air. There's an inch on everybody's cars and homes. They're evacuating and telling people not to go outside because they can't breathe in it. And see, these are the things we really need to think about, because what that's doing in the goodness of it all is it's putting up literally a protective layer. You know how the scientists keep talking about, well, we have to adjust the atmosphere and we have to change the weather and we have to put mirrors up there, and they want to completely mess with our environment in our air and our sky around the Earth, and yet the Earth is naturally going to do that. It just takes a good couple of big volcanic eruptions to create that protection layer around the Earth because of the ash.
Right. And that's so true, too. I remember interviewing an astronomer some years back, and his book was a beautiful book, but he showed, you wouldn't think, volcanoes in a book about astronomy, but that's exactly what he was talking about, is that it's very responsible for the biosphere staying in balance as a result. So, fascinating.
Right. With this activity in South America, there may be a bit of a tidal wave that heads towards Fiji. It's not like they've never experienced that before. They're pretty tough there. I see a pretty big earthquake happening in Russia, also in China, and that's where I get a little nervous myself about the whole nuclear power plant thing. It would not surprise me, and I'm not wishing this on any of us, but it would not surprise me if we had a bit of a Chernobyl repeat. Not that was caused by an earthquake, but that things happen over and over until we get it.
Right.
It's any kind of dysfunction. And I'm not classifying nuclear power under the label of dysfunction, but I am going to say that until we really know what we're doing and we know how to deal with it and we've got our eyes wide open, that there's some things that could repeat in history so that we get it.
Right. Yeah, just like the financials. We had the Great Depression. The banks went back to finding a way to deregulate everything, and here we are again.
Yes.
I think to me, the enduring part of natural disasters, even though there's a tremendous level of tragedy because of life and homes and so forth lost, is how we all tend to come together and put aside all the things that, the wars or the little things that, really cause us not to like each other too much, and in favor of what we really are, which is willing to get out there and help each other, and you just wish sometimes we would really take a look at that and absorb it and act on it more often than we do.
Right. And yes, we all need to act on things a little bit more than we do, and again, that's the push for the fifth dimension, is that we really have a responsibility, and we need to be in our adult selves and deal with some of these responsibilities, because we're no longer we don't have the luxury we did in the fourth dimension to stay in our inner child and let our inner child play and have fun and drive the car while we sit in the back seat and go, look, my 5-year-old knows how to drive.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a call to everyone to be present and to be in their bodies and to be the adult that they are, because we've created some things, and I'm going to say that again, we have created some things on Earth that we need to take responsibility for, and all your listeners, I know everybody out there, you know, you have children, you have grandchildren, some of you have great-grandchildren. And these are the people who are inheriting all of the things that are going to be happening here on Earth. And we all need to take just, you know, another step forward, even if it's signing petitions or helping your own local community be more aware of what nuclear power plants are nearby, and, you know, and to get a little more involved so that we have not fear, but that we're acting from a place of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's also another man-made invention that's out there that seems to have at least your attention. Tell us about that.
You're talking about the Hadron Collider?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The Hadron Collider is built on the border of Switzerland, and it's an underground chamber that they've built. My facts aren't in front of me, but I think it's 18 miles long, and it's circular. And it's this huge tube that they run these experiments in very, very deep underground. And this is where they have been testing, you know, all kinds of things, and with success. But my guides, when I asked about 2014, one of the first things they said to me was the Hadron Collider could actually be the demise of the Earth. And it was one of those red flag moments, like, wait, what do you mean? And they said that every time they run this thing, it destabilizes the Earth's core, and that it could eventually cause the planet to go out of its orbital path, and it could cause our poles to destabilize. And you know, I take everything that my guides say to me very, you know, to heart. And you know, I've worked with my guides my whole life, and I feel that their spiritual message is meant for all of us to hear this and, again, get involved. There's only a handful of scientists in the world who understand what is being done and what the tests are and all of that around the Hadron Collider. Just a handful of people. Everybody else is like, I don't know. I'm not a physicist. I don't know. And my feeling is that we all need to get involved. We all need to understand what these tests are, why they're being done. And furthermore, the one that's coming up in 2015 is to literally recreate the Big Bang Theory. And if you think about what the Big Bang Theory is and the creation of this universe, we're thinking about doing that in this you know, this chamber, if you will, you know, and I'm, you know, my guides are just shaking their heads saying it cannot be reproduced inside this planet. It will blow the planet apart.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I first read about the Hadron Collider was probably about 12 or 15 years ago, and at the time they were actually in search of what they were calling the God particle. Mm-hmm. And they believed apparently through this maybe they can get some insights as to where that particle was. You know, I don't know what happened after that, but, you know, to consider they're trying to recreate the Big Bang is, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's, yes, they are, but I've got another friend who's a scientist, and he has told me that there are many people in the scientific community that are very much against this and have vocally spoken out. But, you know, there's power and money behind this project, and that's what has won. Mm-hmm. And all I can say to the human race right now and everybody who's listening is we have to get involved. We have to take more of a front seat approach. This isn't happening to us. We are a part of it. Mm-hmm. So we can take responsibility by creating petitions and all kinds of things to bring awareness to people, you know, because that awareness to me is only there for the scientific community. It's like nuclear power. You know, it gets developed. Everybody in the scientific community goes, woohoo, that's so cool, let's do it. But they never tell the rest of the people, we've got this great thing, but we don't know how really to store the waste from it, so we're just going to do this.
Right.
You know, and there's no okie dokie from the rest of the world population to say I'm really okay with that or I'm not.
Mhm. Same thing with the nuclear bombs. You know, first they're testing them on the ocean, and then we shouldn't be doing that, and then they test them underground. Well, maybe we shouldn't do that. Well, let's test them in space now. You know, well, maybe we ought to stop doing that. Okay, I guess you guys are done with the explosions.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
exactly.
Boys with toys, crazy.
But you know, Dan, the most important message I have for everybody for 2014 is that we really see what we want in the future, because the future is always in a liquid state. Mm-hmm. It's not formed yet. It's our thought forms, it's our karma, it's our intention that creates the more solidified event that happens. And I just encourage everyone to get that and understand that's what happens, and then allow themselves to really see what it is they want to be creating in the future and bring that vision into the present. Allow what it is, you know, you want to see Jimmy get a scholarship and go to, you know, the university. See him receiving that scholarship. See him being accepted into a university, and bring that into the present moment, so that we are more responsible with our energy in what we're creating, and we take responsibility for, you know, all of these really tough things we've been talking about, you know, with guns and violence and things that are happening that are truly human created, and we take more responsibility for that we see a more peaceful community and city, and our whole society is more peaceful. But we have to hold that vision.
Always a pleasure to have you on the program, because even though things can seem a little dark and gloomy, you know, you always bring a bright side to the whole thing, and you do it in a simplistic way. It's to, hey, people, you know, you're in this together. It isn't somebody else out there. If you know about it, just as I remember one philosopher was saying, you know, when you recognize that there is a problem, you automatically become the solution. And too many people usually will point the fingers and leave it up to somebody else until it gets out of hand, you know, when they could have been doing something about it, you know, right off the bat.
That's right. That's right. And this is the beginning of the, you know, the no V for victim in the forehead. This is the beginning of that era. We are not victims.
Yep.
And we cannot keep prescribing to that victim role, because it's time, like I said, to be the adults now, to take responsibility and to stop allowing the inner child to drive the car while you sit in the back and go, isn't it cool, my child can drive the car.
Sonja, is there a website people can find out more about you?
Sure. It's Sonja, Sonja, Grace, GRACE.com.
Sonja, thank you for gracing our listeners with your predictions for 2014. It sounds encouraging, but there's certainly some bumps here and there, and as you said, take responsibility for that bump. Don't just go over it or wait for somebody else to do something about it. Right. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you so much, Dan.
We want to thank you, the listeners. Be sure to visit us at Beyond50Radio.com, the number 50. We do have weekly exclusive updates for our listeners there, so we encourage you to sign up for that as well. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you again for joining us. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.